Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today I've got another interview for you with Mike Willner. He's got a game coming from Compass Games called Prelude to Revolution. He's going to discuss this with us today, what it's all about. Thanks a lot, Mike, for stopping by. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Mo.
So this is a follow-on to Prelude to Rebellion, is it not?
Correct.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about
Sure.
the first one and the second one and where they come from.
Happy to do so. So, Prelude to Rebellion models the years of turmoil and political mobilization prior to the uprising in Lower Canada in 1837, which
Okay.
I'm sure you know an awful lot about.
Not a bit.
You are joined by much of the wargaming community not knowing. So it's a relatively obscure event in Canadian history, except to people from Quebec who tend to know about it. But putting aside the subject, the designer, Marco Poitret, and I apologize if I mispronounce his name, developed a really dynamic and interesting card-driven system. The great-grandfather is, let's say, Twilight Struggle.
Okay.
You were looking to get control of areas in the simplest form
Sure.
with cards that have points and events, and you play for the points or the events, and if you play your opponent's event, they get to do it after you play your points. It's usually things you would recognize from Twilight Struggle.
Yeah.
But he added a lot of interesting twists. First of all, rather than areas on the board where you put in counters in one spot and pile up, there are tracks.
Yeah.
Whoever has more cubes in the tracks controls the area.
Sure.
So some placement game type of appeal. Some tracks cost a little bit more to place, so you'll have a track that is very difficult for you to place, but my side of it is very easy.
Sure.
That represents these people are more inclined towards my point of view than yours.
Yeah.
So they're able to model that. And when you place cubes in tracks, you wind up taking control and getting potentially points for controlling them.
Okay.
So that's one aspect. But he added in some card play aspects. We each get a hand of cards, but there are some that are face up.
Okay.
And you can buy them.
So they're community cards.
Well, they are still in essence.
Purchase for them, but yeah.
Yeah, but actually, each card is either one player or another.
Okay.
So if it's your card, you get to buy it. If it's my card, I get to buy it. And some are neutral, so either one. But I can see you have that event. I better prepare on the board before you get to play that. So and there's a cost to playing them. So that's interesting. The scoring is open. Not like Twilight Struggle where we're playing and suddenly I drop a scoring card on you. In this game, the scoring tracks are all visible. The more cubes I have out in the districts, the more points I could get.
Yeah.
The more organizations I built, we'll go into that maybe later, the more points I can get. But you can see how close I am to scoring.
Okay.
Just as I can see. So when you see, he's getting ready to score the urban districts, and I better do something about that, as opposed to all of a sudden it's a surprise.
Yeah.
Africa's scoring.
Yeah.
So that's another one. What I find probably most interesting is you're playing to get control of areas and build organizations and all that stuff, but all the while, there's a track in the Canada game called Rebellious Spirit.
Okay.
It's creeping up every turn, and some events make it go higher and higher. And when it goes to the top, the game ends. There's a scoring sequence.
Okay.
And 5 players out of 6 are taken by surprise. Because it doesn't go up 5 at a time.
Yeah.
It goes up every turn 1. There's 15 long.
Yeah.
It goes up 1 at a time, and then maybe 1 for an event, and another for another event. And all of a sudden it's at 9, 10, 11,
it's getting out of
12,
control.
13.
Yeah.
Exactly. So while you and I are like, I'm contending with you for this area or that area, this track is going.
Yeah.
What that models is during the years of discontent in Lower Canada where they were trying to get a political solution in the parliament, there were the fringe extremists who were like growing and growing. And frankly, they were provoked into an uprising.
Okay.
If you folks at home don't know, the rebellion lasted, I think it's longer, but it was equivalent to about 2 weeks where the British regular garrisons crushed the rebellion.
Wow.
Because it was a bunch of farmers and so on.
Yeah.
Everybody involved was either hung, shot, exiled, or jailed. And it was over.
One way to take care of everything, right? Not
Yeah.
the best, or for the receivers.
But the point is here that the years of buildup were quite interesting. You had a lot of political activity, ideological conflict, and this sort of on the edge, this extremism growing and growing
Sure.
and growing. In Canada, it so happened the government provoked the extremists because they knew if they could get them to.
Get them to go, then they can smack them down, which is what they did.
So I played this game a couple of times,
Okay.
and I am a very avid amateur historian, as many of us wargamers are.
Sure.
And I said, Russian Revolution. This would be
Streams
great.
for it, yeah.
Yeah, no, I never designed a game. I never wanted to design a game, but I said, okay, I wonder if this could be. So I called Marco via Skype and suggested the possibility, and he got all excited. He contacted Compass, who said, sure, give it a shot. Put together a prototype, and now we're tracking our way towards release.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long did that take from the time that you had that initial seed kind of planted in your head? Wow, this could be Russian Revolution. Then speaking with Marco, like you said, and then we're at this point. How long has it been?
Not that long.
Really?
It was about March of last year when I said, this could really go. And then I brought the prototype to Compass in November at their Compass Expo in Cromwell, Connecticut in November, which is a great expo if anybody wants to go. And they got all excited about it. I got one of the partners, Ken, to sit down and he said, all right, I can give you 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We played like all night. And
Really?
like people was gathering around the table, and Bill Thomas was the other partner there, like, this is great, and John
Outstanding.
Krantz was there.
Yeah, that's great.
So I got look, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. Marco did an incredible job designing the base system.
Sure.
And my job is don't over tinker, don't overdevelop. Oh, Marco's the developer of Prelude to Revolution.
Well, I was going to say he is developing it along with you, so
Yeah.
that actually kind of helps keep things on track
Yeah.
to not get too out of control. But because what you said is a good point, don't overdevelop, because sometimes, well, if we just had this little bit more chrome, and then the next thing you know is you have a monstrosity. It's like, the original design is great. It's versatile, obviously, because it could cover any subject. Well, add in what's needed to reflect the Russian Revolution.
Exactly. And this is a critical design principle. I think there are good ideas and bright ideas. Bright ideas sound good, but they're not. So I always bounce my ideas off of Marco and the large team of dedicated playtesters I have, thankfully. And I learn if I had a good idea or a bright idea.
Yeah.
And the smart designer is willing to listen and say, oh yeah, that sounded great to me, but they're right. This isn't going to fly.
Yeah.
So I want to acknowledge Marco. I also want to acknowledge Dave Doctor, who is
Okay.
the designer of Triumph of Chaos.
Okay.
Have you
No,
played?
I've not played that.
It's another card-driven game. He based it on Paths of Glory.
Okay.
But this is a game where when you play it, you understand what we mean by chaos. It's this Russian Civil War, which is,
Total
let's
chaos,
say,
any civil war.
total chaos.
Yeah.
And there's like 8 sides contending. There's actually 18 factions, including, and then the players.
Yeah.
So, and
It's a busy field.
It is a very busy field, and I got a wonderful opportunity to speak with Dave on the Skype for an hour or so, and he gave me some incredibly good advice and really helped guide me. So the community's great. So that's where we are. So with any luck, in winter this year or maybe early next, we'll see Revolution
outstanding.
on the shelves.
Now, your journey from gamer to designer, that's not even, it's just about a year old now
Yeah.
at this point. Happy first birthday.
Thank you.
As a
Thank you.
designer. Talk about how that's changed your perspective on gaming.
Absolutely.
Because now you're looking at games not just from a gaming perspective, but now you're kind of looking at it now from a designer's perspective as well.
Absolutely. So the first thing I will say is I now have a tremendous amount of respect for the people who do this for a living. I have no idea how, and I'm only mentioning some names because they come to the top
Sure.
of my head, but there's a million of them. Mark Simonich, who knocks out these outstanding designs. Dean Essing at the Gamers.
Yeah.
How do they do it? I think to myself, there's a genius and a skill there,
Sure.
which they really exemplify. We're lucky to have them in the hobby.
Oh yeah.
So that's that. But more important, as important, us gamers, we get a set of rules and we say, oh, look, I look at the play aid card and it varies slightly from the rule book. Why could that? How did that? I'll tell you how it happens. The design is often one guy
Yeah.
who's trying to keep the play aids, the board, the cards, the rules, the play examples, the online play, trying to keep all those things all in sync while all those parts are moving. And
Not
if something
easy.
falls a little out of sync, it happens.
Oh, it does. It
We
does.
would prefer it didn't, but I now say, okay, I get it. I see how this happens.
Okay.
The third thing is, and not for nothing, but if you want to go far, go together. That saying,
Yeah.
you gotta have a bunch of people who are willing to put in time and effort to help you. I'm very lucky that Metropolitan Wargamers in New York City I've got about a half a dozen really dedicated playtesters and people who are helping me on a very active basis. So for example, one of the guys, when I started whining about how hard it was to maintain all of the cards, there's 162 cards, maintain it all in PowerPoint, he developed a system where I could do it in Excel and then press a button to spit out the cards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. So now I can do all
Fantastic.
that
Yeah.
analysis, because you're always wondering how many cards make this go up or make that go down, and what does it mean with the cost, and how does it compare to something else? And to start combing through PowerPoint files is
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh, no, it's easier to do it than Excel data. Yeah.
So you got to really, if you can attract and build a core and a team of people who are going to help you and work with you, you could possibly succeed. Now, I guess there's one-person shows.
Sure, there are
But-
some. Yeah.
And hats off to you, because I would not be anywhere near done or anywhere near anywhere if I didn't have these people who are constantly giving feedback.
Well, that's the one thing that people don't realize unless they get involved in the process for a game, that there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of pieces, and you have your average hobby game and you have a war game over here, and so the average hobby game is going to have mistakes too, can have mistakes, and they've
Right.
got, say, a deck of 52 cards, and you've got a little player board and a couple of counters, and there can still be mistakes in
Sure.
that. Now you go on the other side, you have a war game. It's got a 40-page rule book. It's got 4 player aids. It's got 2 giant maps, and you've got your counters, and it's got 2 sheets of counters or 3 sheets. It all adds up. That's a lot of stuff to track, and mistakes are going to happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. And look, that's why we all should be very appreciative. We have companies like GMT and these guys who can support the developers
Sure.
and designers with some resources.
Yeah.
So Compass has been great, by the way. I just want to.
I was going to ask you about that. How's it been with their design teams?
Well, what I'm receiving from Compass is I get a lot of support and encouragement from the John Krantz, who's sort of assigned to keep these things going.
Yeah, keeps all the balls in the air.
Yep, he does. Compass provides sort of online project management support so that I can stand a chance of keeping things organized.
Yeah.
He'll get me to conventions. I don't want to imply that my expenses are paid, but when I'm here, he'll send people to go look at the game. He'll introduce and so on. So that Compass is very supportive in that respect and responsive. I send an email to Ken and John and ask a question. I get back a response very quickly. So all of that's very important. I've quickly learned, however, that it's up to me to get this done. It's up to the designer and the development team to get this
That's
stuff
true.
done.
Yeah. Well, that sounds really great. Now you're saying winter, possibly early first quarter, maybe next year, depending.
I think we brought here to Consum World Expo Dallas, we brought a copy of the prototype of the game, which can be played end to end. It works. I believe there's more work to do, tweaking the cards a bit.
Okay.
But the major design decisions have been made and settled.
Yeah, now you're just kind of polishing the little bit, a couple rough edges.
My real hope is to get to Tempe, the Consum World Expo granddaddy of them all.
Yeah.
Get there in June, bring the game, get one more exposure. And if that's the case, then I'll polish off as much as I can and turn it over to Compass. I don't know how long it takes them to produce, but not
Sure.
less than 6 months, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, I mean, if you get to that point, the thing is getting it done by summertime and then putting it in their hands, hopefully within 6 to 9 months or so.
Yeah.
It'll be in everybody's hands out there. And the thing that's kind of neat is for the people who haven't seen it, we were talking about this offline a little bit. It's going to appeal to war gamers because of the historicity, but it's also going to appeal to the Euro gamers and the hobby gamers. The fact that it's effectively a Euro around a historical conflict when you look at the columns. Just like Twilight Struggle is kind of has that Euro-ish kind of, you're battling for control of areas. You're doing it the same here with this game, but it has a different look. So you may look at it and go, it kind of looks just like two columns here, which is what it is, columns. The inner accountant and everybody that likes accounting is going to scream with joy, that's for sure.
Right.
With the original design, was that an intent to come up with that? Was there any other graphical user interface thought of or looked at?
I'm not sure. I spoke with Marco about this because we want to think about how it looks. The way the game is structured, so let me back up and give a little context and then answer the question directly. The game is structured where each area on the board or district is kind of distinct and it's discrete. So the fact that, for example, in Prelude to Revolution, you have the Winter Palace, it's not really connected directly to any of the other districts. It has its own characteristics. For example, it's a very pro-government. The two players are the revolutionary and the government. So it's very pro-government because that's where the Tsar lives. So it's very expensive for the revolutionary to place cubes there. It's very inexpensive for the government to place. But that's it. So there's really no interrelationship. There's no lines drawn. So if you looked at Dawn of Freedom or Twilight Struggle or
you
Europe
see
in
all
Turmoil,
the connections.
it's not relevant in the game.
Okay.
So you could, theoretically, you could just take all of the tracks and line them up and have a line of tracks, which would be very unappealing.
Yeah, because there's not adjacency like there is
right,
in
exactly.
those games. Okay.
So the rest of it is, and now if we're going to have tracks, if that's the underlying mechanic, the next question is how do you arrange them on a board in an appealing way? I don't think there's a lot of other options. You might want to say, I don't want to use tracks, I want to use something else. But like Twilight Struggle uses just incrementing counters. Which in essence is the same thing.
Same idea, just keeping it compact.
But what you don't get there is in Twilight Struggle, you're going into an area that your opponent controls. It costs you double or whatever it is, I think, double. But in this, each cube placement could potentially cost a little more, yet more, a little less. So it gives more granularity to that penalty. So it's important. It's an important mechanic. So no, I don't think that if you're going to have those tracks and the adjacency is not relevant, then it's a question of arranging them in an appealing manner on the board.
And it's just one of those things where it's functional. It's just not going to be. People are going to, I think, be a little going, what is that? Which is good too. It'll drive them over to check it out. But it's a little deceptive at first because it just looks like a bunch of Tetris pieces almost, all standing up. But that's what it looks like. But then when you get into the actual game itself and what it signifies and the battle for control of the different areas is, like you said, a lot like Twilight Struggle, and that's where it's compelling.
I liked the mechanic, and I very quickly overcame that reaction of, look, it's just a bunch of stacked columns. Because then you start, the other side of that coin, though, is when you're trying to get a sense of, like, where do I have control?
You can easily see it.
You can scan, and it's very visual.
Yes.
So that's also good. So I think that interface works well. It works well enough, and maybe there's a revamping that could be done. But again, I'm not the one to overtinker.
No, don't push it. If the design's good, stick with it, and that's a big key. But like we were saying, it's going to be possibly later this year, early next year is when you can look for a Prelude to Revolution, and Prelude to Rebellion is currently out now, correct?
Right. You can get Prelude to Rebellion from Compass or at your friendly local game store, or ask them to get it for you.
Okay, so you can check that out. If you like Prelude to Rebellion, you're going to more than likely like Prelude to Revolution, and if you like the historicity of either one of them, you're going to like them both. But obviously, the first one's even more interesting to me because it's a very obscure topic. I know very little about. And that's one of the reasons we wargame.
Yep.
Is to learn about history. But
Yep.
thanks a lot, Mike, for stopping by. I really
Thanks, Mo.
appreciate it.
Yeah, it's fun.
And hopefully everybody has a better idea now of your game and what to expect. But I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.